In this lesson, I'm going to teach you about the major scale and how it's the absolute foundation of the number system. So let me write this. The major scale, scale. Here we go. Okay, so the major scale is by far the most used, the most important scale of all scales. And it's constructed by a little formula that I'm going to have you memorize, and it goes like this. It's basically a little code for you to memorize. It goes root, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So say that with me. It's root, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. One more time. Root, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Now what you do need to know is what a whole note is, or a whole step. Whole represents 2 steps. And a half represents 1 step. I don't know why it's that way. It just is. And so if you can memorize this, this is basically the formula, or what I call the phone number of the major scale. You pick a root, and from that root, you count whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So let me show you here. Let me put up the musical alphabet. If you don't know this, there's a lesson on this as well. So here are the 12 notes that exists in our Western music scale. Okay, and they just repeat over and over and over again. But there's only 12. So I'm just going to first, I have to pick a root. So I'm just going to pick, well, let's pick C. So let's say we're going to make C the root. Now, from here, I'm going to count up using this formula. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So from root, a whole would be 2 steps. Whole, another whole, whole, half, then whole, 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 half. Whole. Now whole, I'm going to skip this and continue over here. So it lands on a whole, another whole, whole, half. Half takes you right back to the root. Okay? Let me try that again in a different key. So I'm going to go erase this ever so carefully. Okay. So I'm going to go pick a different. Let's pick E. We'll make that the root. Root. So from here, you remember the phone number, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So whole, whoop, that's going to be confusing. Whole is 2 steps. Skip whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And sure enough, it ended up back on the root. Okay. Let's try this again. I'm going to pick A for the root this time. Root. So this one's easy because it's all straightforward. It's linear here. So from root, you go whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay, so once you do that, what you're going to do is to really be able to identify these through numbers. Basically, the number system represents what intervals are. Okay, that's just kind of a fancy word to be able to know where the different notes sit. So on the root, whatever the root is always number 1. So the root is here, A, that's number 1. The next note in this scale is number 2. Then the next note is number 3, right there. Then it goes half step to D, that's number 4. Next note here is 5. This note is 6. This is 7. And 1, it returns back to A. So that's basically how the major scale and the number system, the basic concept of the number system, all are related. It's using the major scale, just figuring out what the steps are and then numbering them from 1 through 7.